people who are identified as being endowed with the powers of the mothers, the great mothers they call Iami, but for lack of a better word, they use the word witches to describe them. And then we have the priests, and then we have the rainmakers. So those are the few people that can manipulate and do all of these things, right? They have the ability to do it. Now, how did they get the ability to do it? Some use it for good. Listen, some use it for good. Some use it for ill of their communities and follow human beings, okay? And I'm sorry, for the communities and fellow human beings. And in order to appease the gods, right, people have to perform rituals and to make sacrifices, right? So there are numerous rituals such as those for fertility, for humans, for crops, for animals, for birth, initiation, marriage, death, etc., making the rain, planting, and harvesting, and the whole gamut of stuff, okay? So for the Yorubas, nature is not an impersonal thing. It is occupied with religious significance, okay? The individual world is, the invisible world is symbolized or manifest by visible, concrete phenomena and objects of nature. Like, for instance, let me give you a good idea. A lot of times when people come to a reading with me, sometimes it's ascertained that they just walked somewhere and stepped on something that somebody put down, and they pick it up in their body, and it might actually make them feel pain and be sick, okay? They done went and, got their foot on some powder or something, some bad thing that somebody made and used for ill intention with the plants and all this stuff and put it down as a trap. They went and walked in it, okay? They wasn't aware, and it's affecting them and causing them to be sick. Sometimes the illness is not curable or identifiable, right, by the medical means, by going to a doctor and like, oh, no, I don't find nothing wrong with you. You know what I mean? So here comes in that worldview about, how things happen. So when you're feeling pain, you're thinking, but they're not finding nothing wrong with you when you go to the doctor. So you begin to think, oh my God, am I going crazy? Am I imagining this pain? No, it's real. It's hurting me. Tears are coming out of my eyes and all of this stuff. And next thing you know, but you're not going to go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, some kind of counselor therapist to find out it's a mental problem, because mental problems can manifest into physical problems, where you can imagine that you're having certain illnesses and it's actually in your imagination. Things like that can happen, okay? So now, the Yoruba health belief. Pardon me, I just wet my throat a little bit. The Yoruba health and illness are two opposing phenomena. Health and illness are two opposing phenomena underlying the Yoruba philosophy about wellness, okay? In the Yoruba, they emphasize the importance of cultural differential in the perception, definition, and interpretation of social phenomena. So the more direct power of social relationships is an important influence in the production of events of sickness and healing. Remember, we gone back to the social thing and the defiance of social norms, okay? This manifests itself as mental illness because you're taking things out of context, or you're mixing this and mixing that. The context does not fit. It don't fit, okay? So then whatever message you're bringing off you're bringing off like a real warped message because you're saying one thing and you're sending out one message on the other hand, and then on the other hand, you're talking about something like it's like almost the complete opposite. Okay? So the writer says every human being is sick from time to time, but not in the same way. So individuals do have subjective experiences of sickness. Sickness occurs from different causes and in a manner corresponding to our singular bodies, our unfolding biographies, our cultural and historical positions, and our current circumstances. That's why in the American, the survey I read on WebMD earlier, that's why they could say that racism is an added impact to mental illness for African Americans, okay? Given the fact that we're living presently with like these imminent threats of being murdered at any time by the police, by the people that are supposed to be protecting us, we're living with that, okay? Especially if you're a black man in America, okay? You're living with that. So, you're constantly walking on pins and needles, or in the back of your mind maybe you have this thought that this can happen to you, the parent thinking, oh, wow, this could happen to my son, my grandson, or, or anybody, even me. You understand? Okay? So that's enough to, like, make the mind go, a kind of way. So weary, that concept I mentioned before, it, as a notion or idea, represents a cultural perception of mental illness for the Yoruba people. Okay? Okay? So that, people will understand themselves, that how we relate to each other in our African spiritual system, how we bring across a message, okay, or how we deal with with an issue that has to do with any kind of mental illness, how we deal with it is supposed to be handled within a certain way, okay? Okay? So, in the Yoruba belief system, you have to work through the problem, and the way how they start is with divination, okay? You start with divination and letting the divination lead you to an outcome where you can treat the underlying mental illness, okay? That's why, I always recommend that people work with their Ori. The Ori is the head, and that's where everything sits, okay? Everything is all there, okay? That you need to communicate with with God, that you need to communicate with the Orishas, to communicate with the ancestors, even with nature and everything. So it's all there in your head. And if your head is not well, right, then how are you going to function properly? You're going to function out of order. So I always recommend people get their heads cleaned. The Yoruba call it ibori. You get the head washed and all of these type of things, and prayed over and calmed and settled, so you can focus and think clearly. That is so very important, because it kind of keeps you within your social perspective of how you think and how you react to certain things when you need to react, okay? So the mental illness perception is called weary, and the Yoruba also believe, they have a belief system of saying something is aisan. Aisan meaning not well, okay? Okay? So if you're not well, So to be well does not only mean biologically well, okay? Well-being that, but it holistically meaning your mental health, your physical, your spiritual, everything has to align for you in order to be well, okay? So diseases are considered as abnormalities in the structure and functioning of the body organs. For the Yoruba, ill health is an external factor, right, to the body. Something outside is what made you unwell, okay? From deviating from what's inside to go outside, that's how you end up being not well. So accepting a biomedical idea of illness is a wide range of people constraints concerning the parts of the human life that cannot be reached by these tools, okay? Part of the life of the human being. So among the Yoruba, mental illness has some social significance, again, for interpersonal relationships. It forms part of the regulatory aspects of life. It determines one's acceptance in the society and causes social instability, especially in marriage, okay? So if you have somebody in your marriage, one of the partners or both partners functioning off a mental illness, it's a really serious thing. It's a really serious thing because then you're going to take that and that's where you operating off of that business in that place in conducting your life, your married life, okay? So the Yoruba believe that mental illness can result from 4 prospective natural sources, okay, such as those resulting from accidents or drug use. So you could, bump your head, and next thing you know, you're not thinking properly. You're not thinking properly, or you can bump your head, and the bump on your head puts you into a different consciousness, sometimes higher than what you were in before, or it puts you into a lower consciousness, okay? Because remember, the head is where everything happens, okay? So then the second one is supernatural or mystical source, okay? There's something out there that we can't see, probably can't hear, can't touch, can't smell, you understand? It's causing us to have a mental problem, okay? Then we have those other things that result in, from the Yoruba perspective, is the anger of the gods. Like you did something to offend the gods, like using a bunch of curse words in the same subject with them. And next thing you know, you're sick with something and you don't know what the reason why you're sick. All of a sudden you're sick, and you don't know why you're sick because the gods are angry. So I'm just telling you the Yoruba belief system, right? And this is what a lot of us who are into this traditional way of, finding out about ourselves and living our lives. This is our life. So you need to know this, okay? So resulting from anger of the gods. That's the second one, okay? Actually, that's the third one. And the fourth one is preternatural source, okay, which is usually caused by witchcraft. Okay, and lastly, that was the second one. Yeah, and lastly, those things that are inheritable, okay? You inherit it from people in your family that had it. Mental illness runs in your family, okay? So, okay, those are the 4. So the Yoruba believes that in germ theory, that germ theory is an etiology, a disease of that sort, okay? Every department from approved way of behavior, especially those on the extreme, is considered as mental illness, thus depicting social instability. And in this situation, pathological. It becomes a